Let's have a conversation about professionalism. In the not-so-distant past, professionalism in the workplace meant something considerably different from what it has evolved into nowadays. 15 years ago, professionalism often meant adhering to strict codes of conduct. Suits, ties, and formal attire were the norm for members of staff across all departments. Fast forward to today,
Wow.
What is professionalism, and how has it evolved over time?
When I started I think I was in my 20s, when I was a PA to a manager. He took me out on meetings, and it's how he conducted himself, how he said hello, how he interacted with them was a total eye-opener for somebody in my 20s, because it's not something that you would expect. You would expect it to be very formal, and it certainly wasn't like that. It was almost like friends having a conversation.
If you look at dress codes and office setups, there have been some huge changes. But I think professionalism, in its wider sense, hasn't changed at all.
Professional in our industry, I would argue, is somebody that demonstrates the right behaviours and conducts themselves in a manner befitting for the role. So very much all around integrity, transparency, I'd say honesty.
Being a good listener, being reliable. Reliability is so important.
I think professionalism in the workplace is how you conduct yourself, both with your customers and with your colleagues. Obviously remaining polite, courteous, doing the right things.
I suppose it more sort of links into just being like a moral person. Knowing how you phrase things affects people. If you act as a good person in an honest way, you're aware of the effect your actions have on others.
If you're dealing with people who've got business integrity, blimey, don't let them go.
They're the sort of key phrases that I would use in respect of a professional in our industry.
Respect for themselves, for others.
A huge part of professionalism for me is organisation and punctuality. Doing things like creating prioritised to-do lists, using a calendar, keeping a tidy desk, and turning up to work and meetings 10 to 15 minutes early help contribute to demonstrating your professionalism to your colleagues, clients, and other professionals. From personal experience, being organised has helped me focus on my priorities, reduce stress, and maintain a sense of control over my daily activities.
If you go back to maybe 20 years ago when I was first starting off in my career, it was acceptable for managers to stand up in the middle of the office and to start shouting and swearing at staff if a mistake was made, or if something didn't happen that they wanted to happen. They would freely stand there and berate staff, swearing at them, trying to belittle them in front of their colleagues. And sometimes it wasn't a very nice environment to be in.
You started in the bank, it was expected to be a job for life. You were expected to be suited and booted. You would be there usually half an hour before your official start time, and you would finish when the work was done, as opposed to leaving at bang on 5 o'clock.
Everything was very different. Here's a bit of a story that I was told once by an old bank manager who worked for Barclays Bank. There was a branch in central London that Barclays had, and they had several different lifts. So the bank manager had his own specific lift. The branch manager would choose in that day who he wanted to travel in the lift with. Some of the senior staff had again another lift, but some of the junior members of staff and the cleaning staff, they were in the small lift. It was quite warm, stuffy, so that was a very strange set of circumstances.
You knew the senior manager had his own room. You would knock on the door before you went in. You possibly had to have an appointment to go in and see him if you wanted time.
If you got called in to see them, you'd think you'd done something wrong, which was sometimes the case, in fairness. Nowadays, of course, management, we take our office as an example, management are sat at the desks with us.
You know, I've worked with some very old school bankers that have got very sort of, I would say, traditional values that are perhaps deemed as maybe a little bit too traditional these days. However, the underlying message is still the same. You know, you dress for your day, dress for your client, you use appropriate language.
So I think we need to be a little bit more reactive these days, quicker to make decisions. People want answers quicker.
And whether that is good or bad is difficult to gauge, I think.
We're all readily available with mobile phones. People at all levels have our number. They can ring us when they want.
It's more about how you get the best out of people. How do you build up those relationships? How do you cultivate that team success, pulling everybody together in the same direction?
In some ways it's great because it makes them see them as part of the team, but I think that they have lost a little bit of that mystique of being the manager, and I think from their perspective, I think it probably makes the job quite difficult when difficult decisions have to be made or difficult difficult conversations had with members of staff because they've become friends.
Everything's different, whether it's better or not remains to be seen.
When I first started my career in banking way back when, it was a real sort of rite of passage to get your first business cards or your first set of business cards. I think I got mine when I was working for a local high street bank back in 1992, and it was a real sort of I've made it once you got your business cards. And I think at the time I remember going round to all my friends and my family saying, here's my business card, here's my business cards. But of course in those days there was no emails, there was no mobile phones were in their infancy, so it was just literally had your sort of address of the high street bank and the landline number. But yeah, you certainly knew or felt that you'd made it once you'd got a set of business cards. These days, of course, there's digital business cards. It's really interesting. One guy I met at our summer awards, he sort of took my phone, put his phone next to mine, and his contact details went straight into my contacts from his address, obviously his mobile, landline, email, everything. So it is evolving. I think at the moment it is in its infancy. There is a reticence because obviously when you get your QR scanner or your camera out, it comes up with links and adverts. So at the moment there is a little bit of reticence. But you know, being old, I think I would still prefer a business card, although they do get a little bit sort of tatty. The ability to talk to people, to find out what they do, to find out synergies, that will always be there because that's part of networking, that's part of talking to people. It's a very, very difficult skill to be able to do, and it's taken me 30 odd years in the finance industry to come to a point where I can walk into a room and just talk to somebody I've never met before.
When you centralise any process, you lose that personal touch, which is key in our industry, and you're sacrificing that ultimately for speed and efficiency when a process becomes autonomous. So yeah, I would probably argue there's absolutely a place for advancements in technology in our industry, no doubt, no question, but as I say, you do unfortunately lose that personal touch and somebody at the end of a telephone you can have a conversation with.
As opposed to evolving, I think some of the key principles of meetings have always remained the same. It's always been courteous to start on time, end on time, send out agendas, decide who's going to take the minutes. I would say that the core principles, I think, have always remained the same for a long time. I think sometimes those principles can get a little bit lost. People forget that the meeting should be chaired. Quite often people walk into a meeting and there's no real chair. But if someone's not keeping an eye on time, someone's not keeping people on topic, then the meeting can just end up running with itself and you may not achieve what you set out to achieve in a meeting in the first place.
Make sure you know what you're talking about. If you don't know, don't be afraid to admit it.
Is dress code important when we talk about professionalism? Remember that first impressions are crucial in the business world, and your appearance as well as your office attire are the first things that a new client or a business partner will be exposed to upon your initial interaction. If your outfit doesn't give off the impression of formality and success, it may affect your ability to connect and engage with various individuals in your profession. My personal view on maintaining a professional dress code is that conducting yourself with an element of formality can lead to having a more productive work ethic and a more disciplined mindset. There needs to be a healthy balance between comfort and competence. On one hand, I'm sure that wearing a tracksuit in the office would be a great alternative for certain members of staff. However, the freedom that comes with wearing such an outfit can often be seen as a sign of laziness and unwillingness to put extra effort into your job.
As you can see, many of our members of staff share the same core principles of professionalism. Some believe that things have changed for the better, others aren't so sure. But at the core of their beliefs, Empire's personnel know exactly what it means to be a professional.
It is acting with honesty, integrity and respect for the person you are dealing with.
Above all, being professional means having the desire and drive to make sure that you achieve your goals within any profession.
We would like to sincerely thank you for watching Empire's Professionalism piece. And for one final time, we would like to ask you the question: what is professionalism?